Chapter 2244. Supporting the 7-Star Hall, the Desolate Country, Tianwu Academy, and so on was all done by Du Xiaofu alone. How could Xiahou Fenglei not know how tiring it was to place so many burdens on the shoulders of someone who was still young? Xiahou Fenglei was gratified. His disciple had done it, shouldering all the burdens by himself. The Desolate Country, 7-Star Hall, Tianwu Academy, and so on had become more and more prosperous over the years. If it had been him, it would have been difficult for him to do so. We are old and behind the times. It is the world of the young now. Kuang Zun spoke with a smile and gratification in his eyes. It won't be long. Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle will definitely be able to step into a higher realm. The 7-Star Hall still needs Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle to oversee it. Du Xiaofu smiled. Although it was impossible for third Martial Uncle, Alchemy Venerable, to be revived, seeing that his Martial Uncles and Martial Uncle had been reunited made him very happy. The second worry in his heart had been resolved. After chatting with his Martial Uncles and Martial Uncle for a while, Du Xiaofu left first. He returned to the backyard and chatted with his mother for a while longer. Mother wants to go into seclusion for a while, Han Aodong said. Although the Desolate Country seemed to be at the peak of its power and had countless experts, Han Aodong knew very well that the Desolate Country was actually surrounded by danger and powerful enemies. If she did not step into the Saint Realm, she would not be able to help at all. For example, when the 9 demon emperors of the devil religion attacked, she went to the demon emperor's palace to rescue Venerable Weapon. She really wanted to be able to advance and retreat together. Okay. Du Xiaofu nodded. The great calamity was coming and his mother wanted to go into seclusion. Du Xiaofu naturally had no objections. Before the great calamity, the stronger one was, the more likely one would be able to protect oneself. Then, Du Xiaofu thought of something and said to his mother, "Mother, I have a cultivation method here that can increase the power of the soul. It might be helpful to your cultivation." Du Xiaofu knew that his mother was a spiritual talisman master, and the spiritual root of legalism was also extremely mysterious and powerful. The mysterious incomplete cultivation method that he cultivated was extremely beneficial to the power of the primordial spirit. His elder brother, Zhen Qingchun, had also cultivated it, and the results were astonishing. It was only after all these years that he was able to make successive breakthroughs. Therefore, Du Xiaofu wanted his mother to cultivate it as well. When Han Aodong heard this, she nodded slightly and did not refuse. There was no need to be polite with her son. However, when Du Xiaofu handed the mysterious technique to Han Aodong on the spot, Han Aodong's face was full of shock. Too extraordinary, too extraordinary. I'm going to go into seclusion right now. Han Aodong was shocked. With her knowledge and experience, how could she not know the benefits of this technique? She was overjoyed and immediately wanted to go into seclusion. Du Xiaofu smiled helplessly. He could only arrange for his mother to go into seclusion immediately. At night, the sky was dark blue. It was as if it had been washed by clear water, clean, gentle, and solemn. There were no clouds tonight. The moon was dark and the stars were bright. In the clear blue sky, the twinkling stars were like endless blue satin that was sprinkled with countless small jade flowers. The night was cold. In the courtyard of the Du family, the stars were gently floating. Du Tingshuan's figure was tall and straight. He looked into the depths of the night sky and his eyes narrowed slightly. He sighed softly and said, "What a peaceful night. However, I'm afraid the world's peace will not last for long. At least, the desolate nation will persevere until the end." Du Xiaofu's figure stepped forward and stood beside Du Tingxian. The father and son were already at the same height. "What do you plan to do next?" "I'm afraid there's not much time left. The ancestors of the Du family had a lot to do with that catastrophe. When the time comes, the devil religion's first target will be the Du family." Du Tingxian looked back and turned around. "There's not much time left." Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed. Indeed, there was not much time left. Although he had stepped into the Saint Realm, compared to the devil religion, he was still too far away. The 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes all have their own separate realms. It is said that the 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes may be able to survive alone. Du Tingxian was worried. If the catastrophe came, the Du family would be the first to bear the brunt. There would be no way out. After being delayed for so long, there are some things that must be done. Du Xiaofu smiled and said to Du Tingxian, "The Du family is not without a way out. Compared to the realms of the 9 great families, the Du family is not inferior." Swoosh swoosh. A moment later, several figures took advantage of the moonlight and flew towards the Qinhuang mainland. The next day at dusk, the Qinhuang mainland. Rumble. Under the setting sun, the sky was covered with rays of light. Suddenly, the Qinhuang mainland trembled in shock. It was as if the heavens and earth were crying. Rumble. Suddenly, in the depths of the Qinhuang mainland, there was a dazzling light. There was a vast aura like wind and thunder. A surging aura that seemed to cross the ancient time and space spread out. At this moment, all the living beings in the Qinhuang mainland were alarmed. They looked towards the sky. There was a burst of light, like a blooming lotus. From high up in the sky, there were rays of light pouring down from the 9 heavens. The sound of wind and thunder was unceasing. Walala, dazzling runes covered the sky. It was so dazzling that it was like a dream. It fell down on the earth and filled the air with an ancient aura. It was like the beginning of the chaos. It was misty. In the sky where the rays of light were the most dazzling, Du Xiaofu stood in the air. He formed a seal with his hands and closed his eyes. At this moment, a vast space appeared in Du Xiaofu's mind. It was as if their minds were connected. With a thought, he could see every corner of this vast space. The vast land, various dangerous places, and numerous demonic beasts. This was the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu came to the Qinhuang mainland to completely control the space of the divine dominion. Back when the space of the divine dominion underwent endless nirvana, Du Xiaofu saw an afterimage of the master of the 3,000 worlds and obtained 3 treasures. The third was the space of the divine dominion. However, one needed to step into the saint plane to be able to control it. Now, Du Xiaofu had stepped into the saint plane. He was here for the space of the divine dominion. The 9 great families all had their own space and had a strong foundation. Du Xiaofu had always been thinking about the space of the divine dominion. With the space of the divine dominion, when the calamity came, the desolate country would have a way out. Especially everything in the space of the divine dominion. It was the best place for all the young people to train. When the calamity came, the stronger they were, the more chances they would have to protect themselves. Du Xiaofu wanted to send the elites of the Du family and the desolate country into the space of the divine dominion to train. Du Xiaofu had already obtained the space of the divine dominion. It was not difficult for him to open it now. Du Xiaofu's mind was connected. He could peek into the entire space of the divine dominion. At this moment, it was as if the space was injected into his mind. He could peek into the surroundings with his mind and control it at the same time. The space of the divine dominion. This is the space of the divine dominion. At this moment, the old monster of the Green Fox tribe, who had come with Du Xiaofu, was shocked. He had seen Du Xiaofu open the space of the divine dominion with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked? He had also secretly entered the space of the divine dominion. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, and Du Tingxian were all stunned at this moment. At this moment, Du Tingxian understood what Du Xiaofu meant. It turned out that he was referring to the space of the divine dominion. If the space of the divine dominion was the escape route of the Du family, it was indeed no less powerful than the space of the 9 great families. Qi. After a while, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. There was joy in the depths of his eyes, but he was also frowning slightly. At this moment, after gaining control of the space of the divine dominion, Du Xiaofu found that although the space of the divine dominion was under his control, some things were gone. For example, the life-saving talisman and the suppression of the cultivation level that was supposed to automatically enter the domain realm had disappeared. However, there was a good side. Originally, only the most talented creatures could enter the space of the divine dominion. Now, there were no restrictions. As long as Du Xiaofu agreed, all creatures could enter the space of the divine dominion. Father, How can you open the space of the divine dominion? Little Xingxing stepped forward. Her black eyes were full of shock at this moment. The space of the divine dominion was jointly set up by her father, the dragon god, and the lords of the 3,000 sectors. I can already control the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu smiled. Then he explained the general situation to Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, and the others. The lords of the 3,000 sectors had already given the space of the divine dominion to him. Back then, the lords of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon gods set up the space of the divine dominion to train the descendants of this world, hoping to find an outstanding supreme being. Coo! The old monster of the green fox swallowed his saliva. He really could not think of any other amazing thing that the demon king could take out. The space of the divine dominion was actually under his control. If this news spread, the eyes of the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes would be filled with blood. The space of the divine dominion is a little different from before. I need to think about how to set it up. I'm afraid it will take some time. I'm afraid that everyone will have to go back to guard the barren country first. Du Xiaofu said to Du Tingxian and the others. Originally, he brought everyone here because he was afraid that if he could not control the space of the divine dominion, they could think of a way. However, some things in the space of the divine dominion were now gone. After thinking about it secretly, Du Xiaofu wanted to make some arrangements. Now that the barren country really needed experts to guard it, Du Xiaofu did not dare to be careless. Then be careful. Du Tingxian reminded Du Xiaofu. Don't worry. I can protect myself in the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu smiled. He knew that his drunkard father was worried about the experts of legalism and the devil religion. However, this was the space of the divine dominion. He was in control of everything. Du Xiaofu did not believe in legalism. The experts of the devil religion could casually enter the space of the divine dominion created by the overlords of the 3,000 boundless worlds and the dragon god unless the devil god himself came. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Tingxian was relieved. Soon after, everyone left. The barren country needed experts to guard it. Du Xiaofu entered the space of the divine dominion. The dazzling light in the void also disappeared, as if nothing had happened. This was the entrance to the space of the divine dominion. The space of the divine dominion was located in the Qinhuang mainland. Du Xiaofu could control the space of the divine dominion, but he could not move it to the barren country. After the demon king, Du Xiaofu, caused a ruckus in legalism and forced his way into the demon king's palace and shook the 3 continents of Kyushu, the world calmed down again. There were no big waves and the 9 great families did not make any moves. However, everyone knew in their hearts that this was only the beginning of a storm. Chapter 2245. Time passed by slowly, like quicksand at one's fingertips. The desolate country had also regained its peace. The Snow Spirit Battle Emperor, Qiu Qingrong, had returned to the Great Snow Mountain. All the other experts had also entered seclusion, striving to advance further as soon as possible. With the desolate nation's rich resources and the recovery of the world's energy, the disciples of the desolate nation were able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Their progress was astonishing. Some experts broke through one after another, advancing further. Yi Piaoling Mo Tianxiao, Stone, Mu Rubai, Gui Che, Silver-Winged Demon Condor, Phantom, Bloodvine Evil Spirit, and the other top experts of the Barren Nation were improving rapidly with the best resources of the Barren Nation. Half a month later, in the Stone City of the Barren Country. Boom! A thunderous rumble came from the void as lightning shot into the sky from the Stone City. Large amounts of dazzling lightning arcs appeared in the sky, shaking all directions. The entire central state was trembling. Whoosh whoosh! The citizens of the Stone City rushed to the streets, trembling under the vast aura. Countless eyes looked towards the depths of the palace, where the vast aura was coming from. Among the various forces of the central state, there were old figures floating in the air. They looked in the direction of the desolate country, and their eyes were filled with emotions. I wonder who in the desolate nation has stepped into the Saint Realm. On top of the ancient heaven sect, the Golden Rock Domain Lord, Sima Taxing, and the others looked in the direction of the barren nation. Their eyes were filled with shock. Such vast fluctuations and aura swept through the central state. It was a sign that a mighty one had stepped into the Saint Plane. Saint Realm. Our desolate country has another Saint Realm expert. Everyone in the Stone City's royal palace was pleasantly surprised, as the barren nation had gained yet another Saint Plane expert. In the depths of the imperial palace, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The lightning runes were dazzling. As the dazzling lightning receded, Elder Lei's figure appeared. His eyes were bright as if they contained a sea of lightning, and his vast aura was endless. 10 days later, the energy of heaven and earth engulfed the heavens above the Great Wheel sect, shaking the entire central state. She should have taken that step as well. Stone City Palace, Old Lei, Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing and the others were looking in the direction of the Great Luan sect. The one who had the highest chance of entering the Saint Realm was the old lady. In the following days, auras surged into the heavens above Kyushu from time to time, shaking the entire continent. Some of the old men at the peak of the Domain Realm, who were at the peak of the Domain Realm and had almost reached the end of their lifespan, were able to make breakthroughs and step into the Saint Realm with the help of the recovery of the energy of heaven and earth. Oh, at night, the roars of beasts could be heard from the savage Beast Mountain range. The current barbaric Beast Mountain range was no longer the same as before. There were many powerful demonic beasts there. The moon was dim and the stars were bright. The distant mountains and nearby trees were all hazy, as if they were covered with a veil. An ethereal mist rose from the palace, and there were fluctuations of talismans and mysterious patterns. This was a treasure trove. Rumble. Suddenly, the heavens and earth rumbled and trembled. It was like endless thunder. Such a commotion was much greater than when he broke through to the Saint Realm. It shook the entire Kyushu region. In an instant, old figures from the various major forces appeared in the void. They moved their fingers and deduced the phenomenon. Could it be that place is about to reappear? Above the void, an old man's eyes were filled with shock. The barren nation, Stone City, Imperial Palace. Many figures stepped into the void. Their auras were vast for no reason, distorting the void. That ominous place is about to reappear in the world. High up in the sky, there were red and blue flames and electric arcs fluctuating. Hua Lei looked into the depths of the void, and there were ripples in his eyes. At night, the dim moonlight shrouded the steep mountain walls. Among the lush trees, a few buildings were simple and deep, revealing the vicissitudes of life. In a secret chamber, Ouyang Shuang sat cross-legged. Her body was enveloped in a light screen, and a vast aura slowly fluctuated from her body. Suddenly, following the huge commotion, the large eyes on Ouyang Shuang's peerless face suddenly opened. A soft cry came from her mouth, and her brows were tightly furrowed. She seemed to be in extreme pain and discomfort. Goo-goo, Ouyang Shuang's lower abdomen glowed as if something was wriggling. At this moment, somewhere in the divine dominion, the void was hazy. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Around his body, there was a bright lightning flame that wrapped around him like a barrier. From between his eyebrows, pure energy of the origin spirit and spiritual lightning slowly drifted out. This lasted for an unknown amount of time. Finally, a silver-gold electric arc fluctuated between Du Xiaofu's brows, who was like an old monk in meditation. The resplendent lightning flames in the surroundings seemed to transform into a tiny stream of light that drilled into the space between his brows. Boom! Du Xiaofu's body immediately trembled after the last wisp of lightning flame entered between his eyebrows. A glaring lightning glow surged out from within his body. An invisible ripple that shook the empty space swept out from his body in all directions like a hurricane. Rumble! Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. Lightning runes shone brightly, and wild lightning covered the entire space. Electric arcs wreaked havoc like various spiritual snakes, and the mighty thunder rumbled incessantly. Walala! At the same time, a vast and shocking origin spirit energy swept out like a storm with Du Xiaofu as the center. At this moment, if there were any experts present, they would be dumbfounded. How could the origin spirit energy of an initial stage Saint Realm cultivator be so powerful? Just this origin spirit energy alone was enough to contend with an intermediate stage Saint Realm cultivator. After a while, the shocking commotion slowly subsided, and everything returned to normal. Chi. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes, and there was a flash of lightning in his eyes. The light shot out like lightning, and it took a while for it to recede. Huff! Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The air shook the surroundings, and his robes fluttered. During this period of time in the Divine Dominion, Du Xiaofu had not stopped at all. He had rearranged many secret places in the Divine Dominion. After all, these places would be the training grounds for the Barren State's disciples in the future. In particular, Du Xiaofu placed even more emphasis on the original location of the Supreme Tomb, restoring it to its original appearance when he entered the Divine Domain. The resources were limited, and only the most talented disciples could enter. They couldn't afford to waste too much resources. There were also some places with great opportunities. Du Xiaofu had set up life-saving talismans and cultivation restrictions. The disciples who entered could have a domain realm cultivation and could have life-saving talismans to protect themselves. However, the experts who entered would also be suppressed to the domain realm. As for the boundless nirvana ground that he had comprehended, Du Xiaofu could not restore it, and it no longer existed. He could not help but feel a little regretful. It took Du Xiaofu a lot of effort to set up the Divine Dominion. He had also invested a lot of resources and foundation. The good things on him were almost used up, and he was exhausted several times. Then, Du Xiaofu refined the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed in his mind. The 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed originally belonged to his master, the weapon master Xiahou Fenglei. Now that his master had no use for it, Du Xiaofu did not refuse anymore. The spiritual Thunder Soul Seed was indeed what Du Xiaofu needed the most. The 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed had been in Du Xiaofu's mind, and it had long been familiar with Du Xiaofu's aura. Moreover, the soul seed of the 3,000 repelling thunders was not too powerful for Du Xiaofu at the moment. Hence, it was easy for him to fuse them together without any obstacles. However, because the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed was not too powerful, the integration with Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit brought great benefits to Du Xiaofu. However, the linear improvement of his cultivation and the immediate enhancement of his primordial spirit was not great at the moment. However, Du Xiaofu knew very well that the benefits of integrating the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed were not comparable to the linear improvement of his cultivation. Du Xiaofu had just broken through to the Sage Realm. During this period of time, he felt that his cultivation had not improved much after stepping into the initial stage of the Sage Realm. The gap between each level of the Sage Realm was greater than the gap between the beginning of cultivation and the Sage Realm. It would be more difficult to go further. It's time to look for other spiritual thunders. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. He had done everything he could. The most important thing now was to enhance his own strength. For Du Xiaofu, the fastest way to enhance his strength and the most urgent thing was to integrate other spiritual thunders. It seemed that he would need the help of Hualei Laozu. Qi. After a while, Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared and left the Divine Dominion. He wanted to return to the Stone City to arrange everything and then look for Hualei Laozu to look for other spiritual thunders. When Du Xiaofu returned to the Stone City, he received two shocking news. Old Lei had stepped into the Sage Realm, which made Du Xiaofu very happy. The ancient wilderness fearsome ground is about to open again. In the main hall, Hualei Zi looked at Du Xiaofu and said with an extremely serious expression, "Ancient wilderness fearsome ground? What kind of place is that?" Looking at Hualei Laozu's expression and the ancient wilderness fearsome ground, Du Xiaofu's heart tightened. This place was probably not an ordinary place. Let's put it this way. The ancient wilderness fearsome ground is extremely ancient. It is the place where the dragons, phoenixes, and Kirins fought their final battle during the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation, Hualei Laozu said. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. At this moment, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, Little Xingxing, Old Monster Green Fox, and the others who were present also changed their expressions. Du Xiaofu knew about the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation, and he had known about it since he was young. When he was young, Du Xiaofu thought that the Dragon Phoenix tribulation was just a legend. Later, he found out that it was something that happened before ancient times. Legend had it that there were 3 races at the beginning of the world. They were the dragons, the phoenixes, and the legendary Kirins. These 3 races were blessed by nature and were born with great power. Later on, for some unknown reason, the war between the 3 races was earth-shattering. The impact was too great, so it was called the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation. At that time, humans were still struggling to survive in the cracks of all kinds of powerful creatures. They were extremely weak. Is there really a Dragon Phoenix Tribulation? Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. Indeed, Old Lazy said. Although he had not cultivated as long as Hua Lazy, he knew many secrets. He said to Du Xiaofu, "It is said that the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation ended with the extinction of the Kirins. The dragons and phoenixes also suffered heavy losses and retreated to the 4 seas and Wutong Mountain to recuperate." Chapter 2246. Dragons are revered by the scaled beasts, Qilins are revered by the beasts on the ground, and phoenixes are revered by the birds. However, after the dragons and phoenixes joined forces to destroy the Qilins during the great calamity of the Dragon and Phoenix Calamity, they also suffered great losses. From then on, the strength of the dragons and phoenixes greatly decreased, and the other races took advantage of the situation to flourish. Among them, the human race completely rose to prominence. Elder Lei spoke, revealing everything he knew. As for the location of the final battle of the great calamity of the Dragon and Phoenix Calamity, no one knows how it became the ancient wilderness ominous ground. That ancient wilderness ominous ground has only appeared twice since ancient times, and both times were before the great calamity of the primordial era. My old master had once entered it. It was said that he was searching for an extremely important item, but in the end he returned without success. Later on, he said that the ominous ground was extremely dangerous and had great killing intent. It was extremely dangerous, Elder Lei continued. His old master, Jinlei Tensei, had also entered it. However, his cultivation was still shallow at that time, so he didn't have the opportunity to enter. Hearing Elder Lei's words, Du Xiaofu's heart couldn't help but tighten. Even an expert like Jinlei Tensei had said that the ancient wilderness ominous ground was extremely dangerous. It was enough to show just how dangerous that place was. Strictly speaking, those 2 ancient wilderness ominous grounds didn't truly appear at all. It was only because cracks appeared for some reason that people could enter. Moreover, those who could enter were all cultivators of the Saint Realm and above. Those below the Saint Realm didn't have the right to enter at all. Hua Lei corrected Elder Lei and said, although only cracks appeared in those 2 ancient wilderness ominous grounds, many powerful experts had entered and died inside. There were also people who had obtained great opportunities, such as the blood essence of dragons and phoenixes, as well as the supreme beast energy of dragons and phoenixes. There were also some treasures left behind by the ancestors of heaven-defying races from ancient times. Those races weren't much weaker than the dragons and phoenixes back then. With that, Hua Lei glanced at Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. There was some pride and complacency on his face. He had entered the danger zone before, so he knew much more than Old Man Lei. Hua Lei, have you entered the ancient desolate fearsome ground before? Little Xingxing looked at Hua Lei and asked curiously. Impudent. Master Fire Lightning stared at Little Star and rolled his eyes. However, he didn't look angry as he replied, "Of course, I've been there. I'm afraid there aren't many people who are still alive after going to the ominous grounds. Then if you bring us in, there won't be any danger soon, right?" Little Xingxing blinked her bright eyes. The mark between her eyebrows was noble and charming. She wasn't polite to Hua Lei. Hua Lei's status was very high, but Little Xingxing knew that she was the daughter of the dragon god. In terms of status, she was much higher than Hua Lei. Little guy, you're thinking too much. If we look at the situation of the first crack and the second crack, those who have entered the ancient desolate fearsome ground can't enter a second time. No matter if it's a human, a beast, or a demon spirit, no matter how high their cultivation is, they can only enter once. Hua Lei looked at Little Xingxing, Du Xiaofu, and the others and shook his head. He probably wouldn't have the chance to enter the danger zone a second time. Is that so? Hearing this, the old monster of the Green Fox tribe looked a little disappointed. He didn't have the chance to enter the ancient, desolate, ominous place. Just now, when he heard Little Xingxing's words, he thought that it would be much safer if the Fire Thunder ancestor could take them into that ominous place. Did those old guys from the Eternal Tomb enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground before? Little Xingxing's eyes rolled as she looked at Hualezi and asked. Of course they did, Hualezi said. He looked at Little Xingxing in confusion. He didn't know why Little Xingxing asked this question. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and Du Xiaofu looked at each other tacitly after hearing Hualezi's words. Then they looked at each other and laughed. That's good. At least we can take care of those bastards. Little Xingxing smiled maliciously. If those old guys from the Eternal Tomb couldn't enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, they wouldn't have to worry about the dragons, legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, and famous scholars. They would have a chance to take care of the dragons, legalism, and others. Du Xiaofu also smiled maliciously. If those people from the Eternal Tomb couldn't enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, at least they wouldn't have to worry about the dragons, famous scholars, and school of vertical and horizontal behind their backs. With Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others' cultivation and strength, they might be able to take advantage of the situation. Hearing Little Xingxing's words and looking at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing's treacherous smiles, the old monster Green Fox, Senior Lei, and the others finally understood. They were secretly stunned. Sure enough, people of different families would not enter the same house. Hualezi rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao helplessly and continued, judging from the commotion this time, I'm afraid that the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground won't have a crack this time. It will truly reappear in the world. At that time, there will be more opportunities. Any one of them will be extraordinary. Ancestor, where is the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground? Du Xiaofu asked. It's on the ancient, desolate continent, Hualezi said. Du Xiaofu was no stranger to the ancient, desolate continent. The three continents were Kyushu, the Demon Realm, and the Beast Region. The three continents were the Tianhuang continent, the Chenhuang continent, and the ancient, desolate continent. Among them, the Divine Region was in the Chenhuang continent. Du Xiaofu had been to the Tianhuang continent before. Jinlei Tensei's mansion had appeared on the Tianhuang continent. The ancient, desolate continent. Du Xiaofu remembered something. Du Xiaoqing had said that the mark in her beast soul had been activated. She wanted to search for everything related to her origin. That place was on the ancient, desolate continent. Du Xiaofu was clear about Du Xiaoqing's origin. She came out of the huge headless demonic beast skeleton and came out of the oval egg. However, Du Xiaofu had never asked whether Du Xiaoqing had found out about her origin. Now that the ancient, desolate continent was mentioned, Du Xiaofu remembered. Later, Du Xiaofu learned from Hualezi that the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground hadn't completely reappeared yet, but it would definitely open soon. However, only a crack had appeared on the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, so only experts of the Saint Realm could enter. This time, the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground should completely reappear in the world. He didn't know if cultivators below the Saint Realm could enter. Chapter 2247. If anyone below the Saint Realm goes in, they'll just be courting death. It's too dangerous. Hualezi said. The opportunities inside were huge, but the danger was too great. I have to go in. Du Xiaofu had already decided that there were great dangers in there, but there were also great opportunities. The blood essence of the true dragon and true phoenix, the supreme beast energy of the true dragon and true phoenix, were all heaven-defying treasures. There were also some treasures left behind by the ancestors of some extremely heaven-defying races from ancient times. Those races were not much inferior to the dragon and phoenix races back then. Du Xiaofu couldn't refuse. It was time for him to increase his strength. He had to go to the ancient, desolate, ominous ground. He might have to postpone his search for spirit thunder. You have to be careful. Although those old guys can't enter the ancient, desolate continent, it doesn't mean that no experts can. Maybe there are some hidden experts in this world. They didn't enter the ancient desolate ominous ground last time. This time, the ancient desolate ominous ground has completely reappeared. They won't miss this opportunity. Hua Lei reminded Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. Ancestor, did those demon emperors of the devil religion enter the ancient desolate ominous ground? Du Xiaojing rarely spoke, but he couldn't help but worry. If those demon emperors of the devil religion could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground, the threat would be huge. I really don't know about this. You're the only one who's curious. I remember that when the ancient desolate ominous ground was torn open the second time, those demons of the devil religion had already appeared. However, I've never heard of any demons entering the ancient desolate ominous ground. Hua Lei frowned. He was also curious about this, so he didn't know if those demon emperors could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground. Let's get ready to go. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. His eyes were firm. Whether those demon emperors could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground or not, he had to go there. Maybe he could get some great opportunities. Not long after, Du Xiaofu found Du Xiaoqing. He wanted to know if Du Xiaoqing had found her family in the ancient desolate continent. No, we didn't gain anything. Our clan doesn't exist in the entire ancient desolate continent. Du Xiaoqing was a little sad. She did not gain anything from her previous trip to the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. However, the imprint in her beast spirit allowed her to feel that there were still people from her tribe living in the ancient desolate continent. Du Xiaofu stroked Du Xiaoqing's hair and patted her shoulder. Come with me to the ancient desolate continent. Maybe you will find something. Okay. Du Xiaoqing nodded happily. At night, Du Xiaofu found Mo Tianxiao, Dongfang Qingmu, Du Yunlong, Old Yi, Qiu Li, Gui Che, Silver-Winged Demonic Condor, Thunder Eagle King, Niemeng King, and other core members of the desolate country. He told them about his control over the divine realm. What? When they heard this news, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. They couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets as they looked at Du Xiaofu like he was a monster. Saints will follow me to the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. The others will take the elites of the desolate country to train in the divine realm. Although there are great opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds, it is not easy for saints to come out. Those who are not strong enough should not enter. Du Xiaofu told everyone about his idea and the heaven-defying opportunities that might exist in the ancient desolate ominous ground. However, the ancient desolate ominous ground was too dangerous. Even Saint Realm cultivators would be in danger if they entered. He didn't want them to be in danger, so he brought Du Xiaoqing along to see if he could take the opportunity to find her family. The great calamity is coming. There is not much time left. Since there is such an opportunity, we should seize it. The dangers are unknown. I want to enter, Dugu Fenshin said. His eyes were firm and filled with flames. Entering the divine realm was not very meaningful to him. He had already entered before. The opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds were the greatest temptation for him. As for the dangers, he had never backed down. Count me in. Yi Piaoling only said 4 simple words, but her eyes were shining. Count me in as well. Zhen Qingchun said. Then, almost everyone wanted to enter the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. Many people had already entered the divine realm. Du Xiaofu frowned. The others were fine, but Dugu Fenshin, Nether Demon, Mo Tianxiao, Yi Piaoling, Dongfang Qingmu, Zhen Qingchun, and the others' personalities made it impossible for them to refuse. In the end, Du Xiaofu could only nod. Not long after, Du Xiaofu brought big sister Du Xiaomen, second brother Du Yunlong, Qiu Li, Niemeng King, Thunderhawk King, Gui Che, Silver-Winged Demonic Condor, and the others to the divine realm. Du Xiaofu had rearranged the divine realm. He had to personally instruct everyone. Niemeng King and Thunderhawk King were the kings of the divine realm. Naturally, they had to be there. Du Xiaofu also made some small arrangements for everyone to enter and exit the divine realm. As the news of the ancient desolate fearsome grounds opening spread, the entire Kyushu continent was shaken. Discussions were everywhere. Many people expressed their desire to enter the ancient desolate continent. They wanted to enter the ancient desolate fearsome grounds to seek great opportunities. Such a great temptation was enough to make people put the danger to the back of their minds. 2 days later, in the morning, the darkness before dawn had just passed, and the first ray of sunlight rose from the east. Above the stone city's imperial palace, more than a dozen figures stepped into the void. It was none other than Du Xiaofu's group. Other than Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, Elder Lei, and other true saint experts, there was also Mo Tianxiao, Dongfang Qingmu, Nether Demon, Yelu Han, Dugfenshin, Zhen Qingchun, Yi Piaoling, Chang Guyu, Du Xiaoqing, and Little Tiger. What made Du Xiaofu feel helpless was that little girl Du Xiaohuang, Du Ba, and the others had heard the news from somewhere. They said that they wanted to go to the ancient desolate continent to seek opportunities. They also clamored about going. It wasn't easy to convince them to follow Thunderhawk King, Qiu Li, and the others into the divine realm to temper themselves. Let's go, Du Xiaofu said. The group tore through the void and headed straight for the ancient desolate continent. Around half an incense stick's time after Du Xiaofu's group had left, 2 small heads stealthily poked out from a certain corner of the palace. One of them was a young man who appeared to be in his early teens, while the other was an even younger girl. 2 pairs of large eyes stealthily rotated in all directions. Finally, they looked at each other and smiled. The girl opened her mouth and said, "Brother Du Ba, my father, elder sister Xiaoqing, elder sister Xingxing, and Aunt Xiaojing should have gone far away. Sister Huang, do you think Uncle Xiaofu will be angry if we secretly follow?" The little boy was a little worried. "What, are you afraid? There are great opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds." Du Xiaohuang glanced at the little boy. She was obviously encouraging him. Chapter 2248. Scared? When have I, Du Xiaoba, ever been scared? Although the young boy was young, his body was tall and muscular, giving off the feeling of a lion cub. He patted his chest as he spoke to the little girl. But then his bright eyes turned, showing a hint of fear. He was not afraid of anyone, except for Uncle Xiaofu and his master from the Golden Rock clan. "If you're not scared, then come with me. We'll go secretly." "So what if it's the ancient wilderness ominous grounds?" the little girl said, and her figure rose into the air, tearing the space apart. Although the young boy was still a little hesitant, at this time, he could only bite the bullet and follow. The 2 youthful figures then disappeared into the void. The news of the ancient wilderness ominous grounds opening spread throughout the 3 continents and Kyushu, and all the cultivators were moved. In a short time, many experts from the 3 continents and Kyushu headed towards the ancient wilderness continent. With the speed of Du Xiaofu and the others, it did not take them long to reach the ancient wilderness continent. They did not need to go through the wormhole at all. Tearing the space apart was much faster than going through the wormhole. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the ancient wilderness continent, he could not help but feel a little surprised. There were already many people on the ancient wilderness continent, and he could even feel many hidden auras. Of course, with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation and strength, and the cultivation of the group, they did not feel any threat. This is the ancient wilderness continent. Du Xiaoqing was a little sad. When the mark in her mind was activated, she could clearly feel that there might be relatives on the ancient wilderness continent. But the last time she came, she could not find them. "There seems to be a lot of people here, but I don't see the 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes." Little Xingxing relaxed his mind, and was a little surprised that he did not see the 9 great families. There are many powerful races on the ancient wilderness continent. You can't underestimate them, Du Xiaoqing said to little Xingxing. However, she knew little Xingxing's current strength. Although there were many powerful races in the ancient desolate continent, none of them could compare with little Xingxing. This is not the place where the ancient desolate fearsome grounds will open. Naturally, there are no members of the 9 great families, dragons, or phoenixes here. However, I don't think they will show up too early. There is no need for them to leave early. They don't want to send their younger generation members to their deaths. Master Hua Lei glanced at everyone and said. Du Xiaofu smiled. He knew that Huolei Laozu had followed them here to protect them. Since the ancient desolate ominous grounds was such a big event, the legalism and the school of vertical and horizontal would definitely appear. 2 hours later, a vast and boundless sea appeared before Du Xiaofu and the others. The sea was boundless, and the sky and water were the same color. Looking carefully, there were towering island peaks, cliffs, and verdant greenery. Stepping on the void and looking into the distance, one could see waves surging up and down. Each wave was higher than the previous one. It was extremely majestic. The vast sea seemed to be connected to the sky. In the distance, it was deep and misty. It was as if the sea and sky had merged into one. "It's in front," Master Huolei said. He withdrew his aura and landed on top of a canyon. There were greenery on both sides of the canyon, and a meandering river flowed through it. Everyone also withdrew their aura as they landed. "Is that where the ancient desolate ominous grounds will open?" Du Xiaofu squinted his eyes. Above the vast sea, there was a spatial crack in the depths of the void. Those who were not strong enough would not be able to see through it. There was an ancient and boundless qi coming out from it. Mo Tianxiao, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, and the green fox old monster all looked up. That crack shows signs of completely shattering. The ancient desolate ominous grounds should be opening soon. Master Huolei said. A faint scarlet-blue flame arc flickered in his eyes. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. Not long ago, he had broken into the Demon King Palace. It made him understand that even if he had stepped into the Saint Realm, he was still far from those demon emperors, let alone the demon god. Therefore, no matter what, if there were great opportunities in the ancient desolate ominous grounds, he must get them. The great calamity was coming. Those demon emperors and demon gods would probably recover completely. Du Xiaofu knew that he did not have time to wait at all. With his current cultivation, if he wanted to improve his cultivation by leaps and bounds in a short period of time, he could only look for spiritual thunder and various great opportunities. Only by increasing his strength could he have more power to resist the great calamity that was coming soon. At present, Du Xiaofu knew very well that he could not even deal with the 9 demon emperors, let alone the great demon emperor. What was more terrifying was that there was still the demon god. Even the dragon god and the master of the 3,000 great worlds could not completely kill him. In addition, Du Xiaofu did not think that the legalism would give up. There was also the school of vertical and horizontal, the dragons, and the others who had a deep hatred for each other. It was unlikely that they could resolve it. Du Xiaofu didn't think about resolving it either. With his current strength and cultivation, he was far from enough to face the people from the school of vertical and horizontal, the Dragon Clan, and the school of legalism who had come out of the eternal tomb. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. With a thought, he waved his hand and a Qiankuan bag appeared in his hand. This was an ordinary Qiankuan bag. It appeared to be ancient, and it emitted an ancient and boundless aura. There was nothing special about it. However, at this moment, there was a glimmer of light flickering within it. However, it quickly disappeared. Du Xiaofu was sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that this Qiankuan bag was the one that the great elder of Xiaoyu had given to him when Tianwu Academy was being massacred by the Divine Light Court. He said that the ancestors of the academy had predicted that if Tianwu Academy were to face a great calamity one day, it would definitely be because of the items in this Qiankuan bag. The items in this Qiankuan bag were related to the rise of Tianwu Academy. The ancestors of the academy had set up a seal on it, and only the fated people could open it. As for what was inside the Qiankuan bag, no one knew. Du Xiaofu had kept this Qiankuan bag in his hand all this time. He remembered the words of the great elder of Xiaoyu and could not let this Qiankuan bag fall into the hands of anyone else. Holding the Qiankuan bag in his hand, Du Xiaofu's soul probed into the Qiankuan bag. However, he realized that even with the power of his soul, he still felt like a stone sinking into the ocean. He could not see what was inside the Qiankuan bag. What is inside? Yes. Du Xiaofu withdrew the power of his soul and slowly exhaled from his abdomen. He had clearly sensed some fluctuations in the Qiankuan bag, which had been motionless all this time. After a while, Du Xiaofu put away the Qiankuan bag. It seemed that if he wanted to know what was inside the Qiankuan bag, he would have to wait for an opportunity. There are quite a few people here, Little Star said. Although they had restrained their auras, there were still quite a few experts who had discovered them and were secretly peeping over. These auras naturally could not escape the detection of Little Star's soul. He discovered quite a few familiar auras. Du Xiaofu had long sensed that there were quite a few auras peeping over. When he heard Little Star's words, he probed with his soul. At this moment, there were indeed quite a few familiar auras in the surroundings of the vast sea. Among them, there were quite a few that were extremely powerful. Du Xiaofu's soul swept over and discovered quite a few familiar people. Xiang Wushuang, Xiang Zhangxing, and the others were among them. However, when the auras came into contact with Du Xiaofu's Little Stars, and the others' auras immediately withdrew as if they had been electrocuted. They were afraid that they would provoke this group of people. "Let's rest first," said Fire Lightning. He did not care about the experts around him, nor did he intend to pay attention to them. Then, everyone sat down cross-legged in the canyon and closed their eyes to rest. The ancient wilderness fearsome grounds were too dangerous. No one dared to be careless. They had to maintain their peak and be cautious at all times. There were constantly creatures coming over from all directions. However, with Little Tiger and Du Xiaoqing deliberately releasing some auras, it was enough to prevent anyone from approaching the canyon. However, there were exceptions. Soon after, Xian Gu arrived. Although Du Xiaofu had already stepped into the Saint Realm, he still stood up to welcome Xian Gu. He thanked Xian Gu for his help. A few hours later, above the void, a blue flame spread out. A loud and clear cry spread out. The blue flame rose and spread across the sky like a small blue sun. A blue luan spread its wings and flew over. Its gorgeous tail feathers were covered with blue runes. It was lively and majestic, showing the aura of a supreme beast. Roar! Following the appearance of this blue luan, the demonic beasts in the distance and in the sea kept roaring and trembling. On the back of the blue luan, a graceful figure stood. Her eyes were clear and pure. It was so pure that it made people feel as if they did not eat the food of mortals. She was like a wisp of smoke, graceful and graceful. She was so beautiful that she could topple cities. She was so beautiful that she stunned the world. The disturbance caused Du Xiaofu to open his eyes as well. He looked at the azure phoenix and the beauty in the sky as a smile rose from the corner of his mouth. "It's Xingyu." Du Xiaoqing was surprised and shouted at the void, "Xingyu, we're here." "It's little Qing and brother Xiaofu." When the beautiful woman heard this, she looked down at the figure above the canyon. Her beautiful face was instantly filled with a smile. Her smile was so beautiful that it could topple cities. She could no longer wait and directly rushed down. Then the blue luan's huge body flickered and turned into a girl in blue. Her long eyelashes were slightly curled and she had a mysterious and supreme temperament. At dusk, another beautiful woman arrived. Her appearance was peerless. Her long and slender legs were wrapped in tight clothes. Her curves were alluring and outlined a devilish figure. When such a woman appeared, Du Xiaofu immediately went to greet her. The ancient desolate fearsome ground seems to be completely open. Master asked me to go in. After a while, after everyone exchanged greetings, Ouyang Shuang said to Du Xiaofu, "What are the herbs to take note of in the ancient desolate fearsome ground? Did Senior Bei Qi say anything?" Du Xiaofu asked Ouyang Shuang. Du Xiaofu reckoned that an expert like Crazy Bei Qi might know more about the ancient desolate fearsome ground than Huolei Laozu. Chapter 2249. Ouyang Shuang shook her head and said to Du Xiaofu, "Even my master has never entered the ancient desolate ominous grounds. Even Senior Bei Qi has never entered it?" Du Xiaofu was a bit surprised. From master's tone, it seems that master, Fu Yibai, Nenru, Xiyao, and other seniors are all unable to enter the ancient desolate ominous grounds. There seems to be some kind of restriction, Ouyang Shuang said to Du Xiaofu after some hesitation. This was just her guess from her master's tone, but she wasn't sure about the specifics. There's such a restriction? Du Xiaofu was even more surprised. There are many restrictions in the present world, but not many people know about them. This ancient, desolate, ominous grounds is even more mysterious. According to my guess, this place might have something to do with you. Master Hualei opened his mouth and looked at Du Xiaofu. He wanted to say something but stopped. His gaze flickered and then he said, "Let's talk about it in the future." In short, the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds are very complicated. Du Xiaofu didn't ask any more questions. Night had already fallen. In the depths of the sea and the surrounding mountains, there were occasional low roars of monsters. It's moving as if it's being summoned. I can feel that it's related to the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds. Under the cover of the night and the moonlight, Ouyang Shuang nestled in Du Xiaofu's arms and stroked her slightly bulging belly. Ever since that mysterious yellow round stone entered her stomach, it gave her the feeling of nurturing a new life. It was also because of this mysterious stone that her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. There's movement. Du Xiaofu focused. Ever since that mysterious yellow stone entered Ouyang Shuang's body last time, he had been worried. That stone was too mysterious and he couldn't pry into it with his soul. No matter what he did, there was no reaction. He had even tried dripping blood on it to recognize it as its master. Du Xiaofu frowned. He had once tried to use force to split that yellow round stone, but found that it was harder than any other object. He couldn't damage it in the slightest. Even the 5-colored spiritual stove and talisman cauldron couldn't refine it. It has no ill intentions towards me. I can feel it. Seeing Du Xiaofu's nervousness, Ouyang Shuang smiled faintly. All these years, the mysterious stone in her stomach had allowed her to feel that no matter what it was, it would not harm her. I hope so. Du Xiaofu was also able to sense that the mysterious stone did not have any ill intentions, but he could only feel helpless and helpless. He was very clear that the mysterious yellow stone was filled with an ancient aura and was indestructible. This was enough to prove that it was definitely not an ordinary object. The Desolation Leopard had once said that the stone was obtained from an ancient land in the ancient desolate continent. When it appeared, it had caused a phenomenon in the surroundings, causing clouds to move, lightning to flash, and thunder to rumble. The stone came from the ancient desolate continent, but it seemed to be related to the ancient desolate ominous grounds. Du Xiaofu was puzzled. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Ouyang Shuang looked up and raised her delicate hand slightly, caressing his resolute face. Her large eyes were filled with tenderness as she smiled faintly, a smile that could topple the world. Looking at the face in front of him, Du Xiaofu could no longer hold back. He lowered his head and kissed her gently. Her large eyes closed slightly, and she pouted slightly. Her red lips were alluring as they gently touched. Their lips touched and they stopped after tasting briefly. Then, they entangled, plundered, and passionately entangled. Under the moonlight, this man and woman enjoyed a rare tenderness. Swoosh, swoosh. In the dark night, there were constantly outstanding cultivators descending around this sea region. The ancient desolate ominous grounds spread more and more, and some ancient sects and factions that had not shown themselves before began to appear. Such an ominous ground was also accompanied by a huge opportunity, enough to attract the attention of all the experts in the world. Usually, this place was desolate and uninhabited, but at this moment, it was extremely lively in the dark night. There were also some small disputes, but they quickly subsided. Time passed slowly, and soon it was dawn. The dark gray clouds that had accumulated in the night gradually melted. From afar, the surface of the sea region seemed to be covered by a thin, translucent mist. The light in the morning was like the beginning of chaos, separating light and darkness. The sky that was covered by thick layers of clouds cracked open, and the sky was filled with red clouds. A moment later, the sea region was filled with golden waves, and the red sun was like a furnace of boiling lava. The golden light was dazzling, and the sky was filled with red light. On top of a giant rock in the canyon, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head and looked at the void above. In the depths of the sea region, a crack was slowly opening and quietly tearing open. At the same time, the surface of the sea region began to surge. Crazy waves surged and terrifying waves were set off. At this moment, in front of everyone's shocked gazes, a huge crack appeared in the depths of the void, slowly revealing a vast ancient land. It was as if a part of the world was falling. It's open. Master Hualei stood up and looked at the void in front of him. His eyes were covered with red and blue flames. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The heaven and earth trembled, and the sky and the tides were flipped upside down. The ancient, desolate, ominous grounds had finally opened. The crack in the void expanded rapidly, as if it was opening the entrance to a new world. It's the ominous grounds that has opened. Many exclamations came from all directions. In the vast ancient land that looked like a new world, light shone. Runes were resplendent, and white mist was faintly discernible. It was like the energy of immortals, and there were bursts of sacrificial sounds. It was as if they had returned to an extremely ancient era. There were many ominous grounds chanting, and the divine sounds were deafening. Mysterious runes overflowed from the void endlessly. This kind of movement made people unable to hold themselves back. Many experts had already soared into the sky to fight for the great opportunities. Walala. At this moment, the entire world was filled with surging energy. The white mist fluctuated, and the divine sounds came from the heaven and earth. There's movement again. Du Xiaofu stood up, and the Qinkuan pouch that the great elder gave him appeared in his hand. At this moment, mysterious runes flickered on the Qinkuan pouch as if it was attracted by something, but it soon disappeared. It's reacting again. Just as Du Xiaofu was surprised, Ouyang Shuang, who was beside him, spoke. The mysterious yellow stone in her stomach was reacting again. It was squirming and glowing. Old ancestor, there's a mysterious thing in her body. I wonder what it is? Du Xiaofu informed Hualei Laozu. Hualei Zi raised his eyebrows, and a bright scarlet-blue flame arc wrapped around Ouyang Shuang. As the scarlet-blue flame arc wrapped around her, the mysterious stone in Ouyang Shuang's stomach suddenly calmed down. Strange, I don't know what it is. After a while, Hualei Laozu frowned. He was puzzled. He didn't know what it was, and he couldn't expel it from Ouyang Shuang's body. Looks like there's no other way. This was also within Du Xiaofu's expectations. Crazy Ol and the others didn't know what the mysterious stone was, and Hualei Laozu also didn't know. Chapter 2250. Dad, when are we going in? Little Xingxing asked Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu looked at the void in front of him. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly looked at the void to the side. Many figures appeared in the distant sky, and waves of invisible but terrifying auras spread out. The more powerful one was, the more one would be able to sense such a terrifying aura. Those who weren't strong enough couldn't even feel the existence of such auras. They're here. Hualei Zi looked at where Du Xiaofu was looking. Electric arcs appeared in his red-blue eyes. Thunder flames flickered. Those old guys from the eternal tomb. Do they also want to enter the ancient barren ominous ground? Little Xingxing frowned. The demonic mark between her eyebrows shone faintly. Those powerful auras in the distance couldn't escape her detection. They were the terrifying ancient cultivators from the eternal tomb. Even with her current cultivation, she was a bit afraid. She knew that those old guys weren't to be trifled with. Don't worry. They're just here to try. I've already tested it. They can't enter, Hualei Zi said. Said Master Hualei. He was a bit disappointed. He had already tried it with his mind, but there was still a limit to the fearsome land. Those who had entered it once couldn't enter it again. He had come here with the intention of testing it out, but he had already tested it, and there was still a limit to the fearsome land that prevented him from entering. Amitba. As Hua Leizi's voice fell, there was a Buddhist chant in the sky. The sound of Sanskrit was faintly discernible. Sutras were chanted. In the void, there were several figures in the sky. Their auras were powerful. The one in the front was an old monk. He didn't hide much of his Saint Plain aura. It's the old monk from the Buddhist school. There's also Ninefold Spirit and Henglun. Yi Piaoling's pitch-black eyes were full of spirit. Those were the cultivators from the Buddhist school. She was no stranger to Ninefold Spirit and Henglun. Back then, the 18 Celestial Guards had fought with them in a joint formation. It's not just the Buddhist school. They're all here, Du Xiaoyao said. Her spiritual eyes shone with golden light. From the school of vertical and horizontal, as Du Xiaoyao from the famous guild had a large number of figures appeared from the void above the sea region. Of legalism to legalism, Yuchuan, their auras were vast, shaking the sky. To him, was elder. Saw many familiar figures. But to legalism, Taoist priest elder to elder, Su Yangzi, elder was elder was elder. Meng Qianhe of Confucianism. And Jiang Yuechan of the School of Agriculture's eyes rippled as he looked at Elder Ming and the unkempt middle-aged man. Yu Su of the Demon Vulture clan, Elder Ming Tu of the Heavenly Serpent clan, and Shi Hongtu of the Red Fire Demon Lion clan. Among the group, These three familiars and the other cultivators also appeared, to Du Xiaojing from afar with them. The men and women behind Elder Ming looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, and the others from afar. They gritted their teeth and secretly revealed a chill. However, they did not dare to show it too obviously. Elder Ming, Elder Ming. Du Xiaojing looked up and nodded. His face was calm. He nodded to the unkempt middle-aged man from afar. Du Xiaofu knew who he was. When he first entered legalism and lost his mind, it was Elder Ming and him who saved his life for a short period of time. Du Xiaofu had repaid Elder Ming's favor. However, he had not repaid his second uncle's favor. Du Xiaofu had heard from his mother that his second uncle had been helping him in legalism all these years. However, the gap between him and legalism was too great. Du Xiaofu was unable to call him second uncle. Du Xiaofu was secretly surprised when he felt Elder Ming's aura. However, he was not surprised. After the last time they fought, he did not expect Elder Ming to have stepped into the Saint Demon realm during this period of time. Beside Elder Ming and the unkempt middle-aged man, there was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. His face was a little pale, but his gaze was cold. He looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, and the others from afar with cold hatred. He snorted coldly and then flew towards the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds. The unkempt middle-aged man looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, and the others under his messy hair. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a faint smile. Then he followed Elder Ming behind the young man. Roar! A deafening dragon roar and a supreme beast aura descended. A figure with a vast aura descended. It was Long Qianchao of the Dragon's clan. He brought a few people with powerful auras. Hu Xuanhu of the Mo clan also appeared. He tore through space and brought Mo Runan, Sima Muhan, and a few others with him. Ku! Deafening cries rang out. The Phoenix clan's Saint Feng Qi also came. He brought Zixien Huangling, Feng Han, Feng Chu, Feng Wu, and several others. It seems like everyone wants to take a gamble this time. Hua Lei said indifferently as he looked at the experts of the various sects who had appeared in the sky above the sea. When they saw little Xingxing, Huang Wu, Huang Ling, and the others bowing, they gasped secretly. This little guy looked harmless, but in fact he was the most terrifying existence. At such a young age, he had already stepped into the sacred beast realm and even obtained the vermilion bird's inheritance. Compared to him, they, the supreme sky prides of the Phoenix clan, wished they could dig a hole and hide in it. Don't stand on ceremony. Little Xingxing waved his hand at Huang Ling and the others. Greetings, Grand Shaman. Kong Sansi and several others from the Confucian school came before Du Xiaofu and bowed. Although the Grand Shaman was only an honorific of the Confucian school, everyone in the Confucian school knew how important this Grand Shaman was. Du Xiaofu waved his sleeve and smiled at Meng Qianhe, Jiang Yuechun, Hu Xuanhu, and the other familiar figures. Du Xiaofu would never forget the Taoist school and the Confucian school's help. Although he was now a saint, he didn't dare to be arrogant. Rock Emperor, we'll take our leave first. Hu Xuanhu, Jiang Yuechen, Meng Qianhe, and the others said from afar as they flew toward the ancient wilderness. Whoosh whoosh, the experts from the other mountain sects didn't want to be left behind. Oh, above the sea, the roars of beasts were like thunder. Many King Realm experts from the beast region appeared. Living beings seemed to be competing. Their figures were like lightning, and their auras were vast. Du Xiaofu looked at the sky and saw some familiar figures with powerful auras crossing the sky. They were Hongyue Violet Lotus Fairy, and the others from the Yao realm. Master Flames Park also noticed the people from the Yao realm. He glanced at them, and something flashed in his eyes. Screech! Above the sky, spatial cracks were torn open again. Golden light shone, illuminating the sea. The faint cry of a rock pierced through the clouds and cracked rocks. The experts of the golden-winged rock clan had arrived. Jialo Bat Ian, Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Kaling, Jialo Juekong, and the other familiar figures all arrived. Their auras were domineering and fierce. Grandmother. Du Xiaofu saw a familiar figure. It was the old Granny Jialo Mola. At this moment, the old lady who was originally staggering seemed to have regained her vitality. Her aura was powerful and domineering, incomparably terrifying. Her eyes were like two golden suns contained within them. That was clearly the aura of a holy beast. Greetings, Grandpa, Grandma. Du Xiaofu saluted them in the air. He was happy that the old lady had stepped into the saint realm. The old lady smiled kindly. Greetings, seniors. Du Xiao Bat Yin Du and even Du Xiao Du ground in Ansyu. In Luha. Huang. Nation, Yain. Although he had only been in this dangerous place for an hour, he had already passed through many places. Logically speaking, in a place with abundant spirit chi and an ancient sealed place, it should not be strange to find precious medicine and sacred medicine. However, along the way, not to mention no precious medicine and sacred medicine, Du Xiaofu did not even find the spiritual medicine, so he could not help but feel a little surprised. The murderous aura here is too strong. Spiritual medicine needs a place with abundant spirit chi, but this murderous aura is enough to make it difficult for it to survive. Dai Xingyu said to Du Xiaofu. Under the guidance of her master, she was no longer the little girl from before. Little girl, you know a lot. Du Xiaofu praised. This little girl was no longer the same as before. Then, the group continued to set off carefully. In this ancient land, there was a misty fog, and the mountains rose and fell continuously, revealing the vicissitudes of life. There were white bones buried in the ground, and the soil and mountains were dark red as if they were dyed red by blood, adding to the murderous aura. This dangerous place is probably the final battlefield of the Dragon Phoenix tribulation. It seems that many fierce creatures were buried back then. Ouyang Shuang checked the eerie white bones on the ground. They were huge, but unfortunately, they had turned into ordinary bones, and there were no secret bones left. Everyone said that this was the final battlefield of the Dragon Phoenix tribulation. My master also said that, so it should be true. I wonder if there are still remnants of the blood essence of the true dragon and true phoenix here. If we can get it, it will be a great opportunity. As Dai Xingyu spoke, her eyes were shining. She looked forward to it, hoping that she would have the chance to get such a great opportunity. Du Xiaofu smiled. Not to mention that he didn't know whether there would be true dragon and true phoenix blood essence. Even if there was, such an opportunity would definitely not be easy to obtain. Little girl, be careful. Although this dangerous place is very far away, it is full of great danger everywhere. Don't be careless, Ouyang Shuang said to Dai Xingyu. Boom! Before Ouyang Shuang finished speaking, there was a tremor in the mountains not far away, like an earthquake. Accompanied by fog, there was a brilliant light. Seeing that many creatures had already entered the ancient seal, they couldn't help but feel a little tempted. Wait, don't be careless. Du Xiaofu raised his hand to stop them. From the sudden appearance of the powerful energy handprint and the faintly uneasy feeling in his mind, he reckoned that the ancient seal in front of them was definitely not a good place. Even if there was a great treasure, it was best to act according to the circumstances. Du Xiaofu waited for only a few minutes. The ancient seal in front of them rippled, and a figure rushed out quickly. Some of the figures seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. They seemed to have been sent flying and spat out blood. Qila, a sword beam pierced through the void, piercing through the figure that was sent flying and killing him. Swish, swish. Another few sword beams shot out, mercilessly killing, cutting a few creatures that were about to rush out into pieces. Whoosh, a figure rushed out. His clothes were tattered and he looked to be in a sorry state. He held a treasured sword in his hand and had a powerful aura. It was the white-haired elder who had entered the ancient seal first. It was unknown how the white-haired elder came out, as if he had experienced something terrifying. Then he immediately saw Du Xiaofu and the others in the distance. His eyes turned blood-red, and there was a strange fluctuation of runes. He charged towards Du Xiaofu and the others, and the sword beam directly shattered the void. It was fierce and merciless. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. His attack was also straightforward. He directly raised his hand and slapped forward. In an instant, golden light swept out. Bang! The white-haired elder's sword beam was directly shattered as if it couldn't withstand a single blow. However, Du Xiaofu was surprised by this. Not long ago, he'd sensed that the white-haired elder's strength was only at the peak of the Overlord realm. However, the might of that sword strike from before was sufficient to reach the half-saint realm. It was inconceivable. The old man didn't seem to have concealed his cultivation just now, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape the senses of Qin Shi's soul. Kill! The white-haired elder was blasted back, but he didn't fear death. His killing intent surged as he charged forward once more. He slashed down with his sword, and the sword beam tore space apart. Energy surged violently and revealed a long spatial rift. It was merciless. Du Xiaofu's face instantly sank. Even though he sensed that the white-haired elders seemed to have been affected by something, Du Xiaofu didn't care what the reason was from the white-haired elders' killing intent. "You're courting death." Du Xiaofu snorted coldly. Golden light surged out from his body as his aura suddenly became domineering and sharp. He threw out a punch without any fancy moves. This was a martial technique that Du Xiaofu had only comprehended recently. Chapter 2256. Dai Xingyu looked around and said, "This place doesn't look simple. Maybe it used to be the main palace of this mountain gate." Du Xiaofu was very cautious. He also felt an unusual ancient aura here, especially one that contained the power of lightning. He gazed at the perfectly preserved Great Hall from afar. The mysterious runes on it were fluctuating, profound, and unfathomable. Then, Du Xiaofu's heart sank. This formation was actually very complete. There didn't seem to be any flaws. "Brother Xiaofu, the formation in front doesn't seem to be damaged." Dai Xingyu had also noticed this, causing her expression to turn serious. She had nearly encountered great trouble with the incomplete formation earlier, and it was obvious that there was a complete formation around the perfectly preserved main hall. Once it was touched, it would likely lead to terrifying consequences. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. This formation was complicated and came from ancient times. Not to mention whether he could break it, even if he could, it was definitely not something that could be done in a day. Furthermore, this was a complete array and not a broken one. Du Xiaofu didn't know if the Redbone Horse Monkey Meridian Spirit innate skill would work. If the Redbone Horse Monkey Meridian Spirit innate skill lost its effect, he would immediately trigger the array and the consequences would be dire. "Be careful. Let's go." After thinking for a while, Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth. The Redbone Horse Monkey wrapped around him and Dai Xingyu, and they headed towards the main palace. In the midst of nervousness, the two figures smoothly entered the main palace under the Redbone Horse Monkey's shadow. Du Xiaofu let out a sigh of relief. After entering the main palace, he withdrew the Redbone Horse Monkey's shadow. However, his expression changed. As far as the eye could see, The enormous hall was actually empty. And in the depths of the main palace, there was a huge hole. It was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Zzz, it led to the depths of the ground. It was filled with an ancient aura. Occasionally, there would be flashes of lightning. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from the deep passageway. It was like thunder and lightning surged out. It was dazzling and dazzling, illuminating the deep and vast hall. It was like a rising sun accompanied by runes that flickered fiercely. After that, it was submerged and returned to normal. There's a treasure, an absolute treasure. Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up. Just now, the red-bone horse monkey's meridian soul had clearly sensed the aura of a precious treasure. This precious treasure was related to thunder and lightning. Xingyu, wait for me here. Don't move around recklessly. Du Xiaofu instructed Dai Xingyu, wanting to investigate deeper. Brother Xiaofu, be careful. Dai Xingyu nodded. Under normal circumstances, Du Xiaofu wouldn't be so excited just because of the sun-lightning root. However, the solar thunder root had a different value for Du Xiaofu now that he had the thunder martial veins and was cultivating the thunder profound. Du Xiaofu knew that the solar thunder root would bring great benefits to the thunder profound if he could obtain it. He could feel the resplendent solar thunder root that was connected to the entire void. The surging power of thunder and lightning seemed to have formed a sea of thunder and lightning in the void. The electric arcs fluctuated as if they were about to converge into thunderbolts. Du Xiaofu reckoned that this was not an ordinary solar thunder root. My goodness, this is an unexpected harvest. Du Xiaofu was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't expected that this place would give birth to such a legendary treasure. How could Du Xiaofu let go of such a treasure? An ordinary expert at the peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm wouldn't dare to approach this solar thunder root. However, Du Xiaofu wasn't an ordinary expert at the initial stage of the Sage Realm. Moreover, he was proficient in the thunder profound. The electric arcs fluctuated as the hand seals condensed. The resplendent lightning surged out and transformed into a huge purple thunderbolt hand seal. It contained the power of the thunder martial veins. Du Xiaofu wrapped the solar thunder root and sealed it in his hand. Qila. Suddenly, the electric arcs in the surroundings issued a strange sound. Then, an unusual energy quietly emerged. Du Xiaofu didn't know why this energy fluctuation made him feel a chill in his heart. It was an extremely dangerous aura. Qi. Suddenly, two groups of blazing lightning balls appeared in the front of the resplendent electric arcs. They were as big as two bright moons. The lightning was so resplendent that even Du Xiaofu felt dazzling. This is a living thing. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the two bright moon-like lightning balls. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu felt goosebumps all over his body. Those two lightning balls were living things. They were two huge eyes. Du Xiaofu felt goosebumps all over his body. Suddenly, the outline of a huge object appeared in the void. It seemed as if it wanted to cover the entire void. Du Xiaofu's scalp began to tingle at this moment. A feeling of extreme danger crawled out from his heart. The feather-like armor carried the domineering will of the golden-winged rock race. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's body was also surrounded by purple lightning. From afar, he looked like the god of thunder who had descended. He was filled with the supreme power of thunder, and his murderous aura spread. There was no murderous aura, but it reflected the majesty of creation and the righteousness of heaven and earth. It could shake the heavens and punish all living things. When the thunder martial vein covered Du Xiaofu's entire body, the giant thunder beast's ominous eyes suddenly fluctuated violently. It seemed as if the sea of thunder was surging with stormy waves. An even more dreadful aura swept out and agitated the vast and mighty void. However, the killing intent in the giant thunder beast's eyes had subsided a lot. It stared at the thunder martial vein on Du Xiaofu's body. There was surprise, fear, curiosity, desire, and some kind of reverence in its eyes. Its huge body even drew back a little. Du Xiaofu didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this moment. Who would have thought that the sun thunder root would be so disgusting? Wasn't it said that the function of the Sun Thunder root was to fuse martial veins? However, it didn't say that the energy contained in the Sun Thunder root was so huge and vigorous. Moreover, it was so violent and destructive. An ordinary expert of the initial stage of the Sage realm would have exploded and died if his body hadn't been tough enough. At this time, Du Xiaofu's thoughts would have been enough to arouse public anger if the experts of the outside world hadn't known about it. Du Xiaofu had eaten a treasure like the Sun Thunder root in such a wasteful manner. Moreover, he had even complained that it tasted bad. How could others live with this? The pain that Du Xiaofu had endured had eased a little after he had stimulated the Thunder Martial Vein. The Thunder Martial Vein seemed to have a suppressive effect on the violent thunder and lightning energy contained in the Sun Thunder root. That surging thunder and lightning energy was surging violently in his body towards the Thunder Martial Vein. It was accompanied by a mysterious energy that was gradually fusing with the Thunder Martial Vein. It was showing signs of strengthening the Thunder Martial Vein. "Senior, I've already eaten the Sun Thunder root. Why don't we have a discussion? I'm willing to exchange other treasures for it. What do you think?" Du Xiaofu looked at the mountain-like giant thunder beast in front of him and asked. His pupils were secretly rolling in his eyes. He wanted to find an opportunity to escape. It wouldn't be wise to start a fight with this giant thunder beast. The giant thunder beast opened its mouth. Even though its voice was like thunder, there was a childish tone to it. The voice reverberated in Du Xiaofu's ears, causing Du Xiaofu's eardrums to tingle. "Senior, my name is Du Xiaofu. I'm from the outside world." Chapter 2259. Staring at the purple lightning runes around Du Xiaofu, the giant lightning beast was immersed in them. Time passed slowly. No one knew what was happening in the void below the pit. It's been so long. Will Big Brother Xiaofu be okay? In the main hall, Dai Xingyu had a serious expression and was worried. It had been more than 40 hours. She couldn't help but worry about Du Xiaofu. Demon King Du Xiaofu went in. Why hasn't he come out yet? Could it be that the Demon King Du Xiaofu has already taken the treasures inside? The living beings waiting outside also started to become restless. After such a long time, the Demon King Du Xiaofu and Dai Xingyu still hadn't come out. Perhaps they had obtained some great treasures. However, these living beings still didn't dare to act rashly. This ancient incomplete formation was too strong. They didn't dare to touch it easily. Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and the others also had serious expressions at this moment. The vast expanse of space was densely covered with lightning. Within a purple lightning world, vast and boundless murderous aura spread out. Lightning arcs condensed in the surroundings and roared madly like giant pythons. Rumbling sounds of lightning flashing and thunder resounded incessantly in this expanse of space, causing it to be extremely shocking and strange. In the void, a gigantic mountain-like thunder and lightning beast silhouette appeared, quietly filling the void. Lightning flashed all around, illuminating the void. Resplendent thunder and lightning talismans interweaved with each other. Within the purple lightning world, a figure was seated with his legs crossed. Purple lightning circled around his body. Electric arcs danced around him in a frenzy, shuttling back and forth on the surface of the green spirit armor, causing the color of the golden-green spirit armor to become increasingly deep, revealing a purplish gold color. Time didn't have much meaning in this deep pit. Unknowingly, 3 days passed. In these 3 days, Du Xiaofu comprehended the mysteries of the lightning martial vein. He also absorbed the dense energy from the Sun Thunder root in his body and refined it into the God's Watchtower. Ordinary early Saint Realm cultivators wouldn't dare to swallow such surging energy. It was too dangerous. It was undoubtedly suicide. For ordinary people, directly swallowing the Sun Thunder root was undoubtedly a waste of a treasure. However, it was different for Du Xiaofu, who cultivated the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Peng. After being refined by the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Peng, it was enough to absorb the vast amount of energy from the Sun Thunder root into the Great Golden Peng Peng. He had obtained the Solar Thunder root alone, but he had helped Huang Linger and the others, so he felt at ease. As for this place, Du Xiaofu knew that the big guy was still inside. Once it chased him out, he would not be its opponent. It was better to leave as soon as possible. After bidding farewell to Huang Linge, Su Yangzi, and the others, Du Xiaofu left with Huang Linge, Dai Xingyu, and the others. He had no intention of going with Huang Linge and Su Yangzi. Huang Linge, Su Yangzi, and the others looked at the backs of Du Xiaofu and the others as they left. They felt a little helpless. After such a long time, it was impossible for that guy to not obtain anything inside. However, they understood the former's temperament, so they did not ask too much. Moreover, if it was not for the Demon King's help, they would not have been able to escape. Su Yangzi, Huang Linge, and the others also had no intention of going with Du Xiaofu. With the Demon King's strength and temperament, it might be safer to follow the Demon King, but they could forget about obtaining any opportunities. What is inside? Along the way, Ouyang Shuang curiously asked Du Xiaofu. The solar thunder root has been obtained. Du Xiaofu smiled and told the others. He naturally had nothing to hide from the people around him. What? The solar thunder root is that legendary treasure. However, Little Qing, Ouyang Shuang, and the others were shocked when they heard this. It was actually that legendary treasure. Du Xiaofu still did not dare to lower his guard along the way. He carefully continued to move forward. He also had some gains along the way. He even obtained 2 extraordinary ancient sacred artifacts. He also encountered some dangers, but with Du Xiaofu's strength and cultivation, it could be considered a daunting experience without any mishap. A few days later, Du Xiaofu and the others arrived at a vast sea. The sea water was suffused with a faint blood-red color, which was very strange. Beside the sea, there were some people sitting cross-legged on some mountain rocks. They were meditating and recovering. It seemed that they had fought a great battle not long ago. Many of them also had injuries that were not light. Seeing this scene, Du Xiaofu immediately did not dare to be careless. He landed on the sea and spread his consciousness. The sea water rippled with light, and its aura was very special. It gave people an uncomfortable feeling for no reason. It's the Demon King, Du Xiaofu. The creatures in the surroundings saw Du Xiaofu and caused a small commotion. After all, the Demon King Du Xiaofu was too famous, whether it was in the 3 continents, Kyushu, or the other world. Friend, where is this place? Du Xiaofu heard the commotion and looked around. In the end, he found a middle-aged man and asked, "The Rock Emperor?" Seeing that the Demon King Du Xiaofu was actually asking him questions, the middle-aged man was clearly flattered. Chapter 2263. At this moment, above Du Xiaofu's figure, there was a huge golden-winged rock shadow. Its domineering and terrifying aura overflowed, sweeping across the sky with its wings wide open, as if it was the supreme being, crushing everything in its path. Roar! The flying ape roared again and again, like thunder. Puff puff! The flying ape and flying ape's huge bodies were sent flying, large mouthfuls of blood spraying into the sea like rain. The flying ape's feathers were scattered, half of its wing bloody, bone visible. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and there were 5 deep gashes on its back, flowing with blood and difficult to heal. One of the flying ape's palms was shattered, blood dripping. Its face was as pale as ash, blood dripping from its hideous mouth. It was a tragic sight. "Too strong, let's go. Kid, you can't escape, just wait." As the voices rang out, 2 huge figures flew away. The flying ape and flying ape already knew that the other party was too strong. Even if they worked together, they would not be a match. From the other party's aura, it was not difficult for them to feel that the other party was not a merciful person. Looking in the direction that the flying ape and flying ape had fled, Du Xiaofu had no intention of chasing after them. His blue spirit armor and golden rock wings retracted, his eyes focused. Before he could react, he had suddenly encountered 3 terrifying monster experts. He had no idea what had happened at all. This made Du Xiaofu a little confused. Fortunately, with his current cultivation and strength, there was no need to be afraid. "Are you all right?" Ouyang Shuang and the others immediately went forward. We can't stay here for long. Du Xiaofu looked at the vast outline ahead and said, "Let's go ashore first." Swoosh swoosh, several figures left, and Du Xiaofu and the others did not encounter any more obstacles on the remaining stretch of the road. It was probably the battle just now and the terrifying aura that made the monsters in the nearby sea area not dare to approach at all. The mountains rose and fell, overlapping one another. The murderous aura that filled the air had lessened considerably, and gradually, more vitality appeared. Occasionally, some greenery could be seen on the mountaintops. I feel the aura, it's in the depths. Du Xiaoqing landed on the ground. Green and red flames flickered in her eyes. She sensed a familiar presence, but it disappeared soon after. Du Xiaofu found a karst cave in the valley and set up a seal. He wanted to study the mysterious half of the broken bone. Everything seemed to be related to that half of the broken bone. In the cave, Du Xiaofu took out half of the broken bone. It had already lost its light and was completely black. There were traces of talisman scripts on it, as if they were naturally engraved on it. It was simple and unadorned,